Hi everybody, welcome to episode 18 of the Photography Explained podcast. In this episode, what are the qualities of a good photo? I'm your host Rick, and each week I will try to explain one photographic thing to you in plain English in less than 10 minutes without the irrelevant details. My aim is to explain things in just enough detail to help us with our photography and no more. Okay, let's get straight into this one. So, what are the qualities of a good photo? I'm going to give you a list. This is called the answer. A good photo has some or all of the following qualities. 1. Is interesting. 2. Captures a moment. C. Makes the viewer want to know more. 4. Tells a story. 5. Is well composed. 6. Has depth and balance. 7. Has no distractions. 8. Has good light. 9. Is technically correct. 10. Has correct exposure. 11. Has accurate colours. 12. Has correct focus. 13. Has correct depth of field. 14. Is subtly processed. 15. And finally, and most importantly in my book, looks natural. Okay, if you do a Google search for this query, what are the qualities of a good photo, you will get a huge variety of answers. This is my answer. This is my list. Let's have a quick look in a little bit more detail. Obviously not too much detail because, as I hope you know by now, it's not my strong suit. Number 1 is interesting. Sounds obvious, but a photo, or a good photo, is an interesting photo. There's something in the photo that is of interest to somebody who is looking at the photo. I mentioned in a previous episode that no amount of effort or emotional attachment in a photograph will influence somebody who doesn't know you or know anything about the photo if all they've got to look at is the photo. A good photo needs to be interesting. Captures a moment. Now, this is not something that I am... well, I do capture moments, actually, so I will backtrack on that. For my architectural and construction photography, I'm not really capturing moments, I'm capturing buildings. But on my travel and landscape photography, I do capture moments. It's called sunrise and sunset and a few bits in between. But this also refers to, obviously, any interactions between people. Rather than having people just staring at the camera, capturing a moment between two people is a much more interesting thing. Number 3. Makes the viewer want to know more. The idea is that when somebody looks at your photo, they look at it and the first look they go, yeah, that's nice. But they stay there. They stay looking at it because there's things in there that they want to explore. If they just look at a photo and then move on to the next one, or as in the modern digital world, swipe up or down depending on which social media hellhole we're talking about, that's what happens. So make people want to know more, make them want to look and study it. Number 4, tells a story. What does that mean? Tell a story. Well, again, an interesting photo, it tells you something. You're not just saying, looking at, say, okay, it's a tree. You're telling a story of a tree. You need to look a little bit deeper than that. It's not very well explained, is it, to be fair? I've got to be honest with you, when I'm taking photographs, I'm not thinking of telling a story as such, because I'm not very artistic, which isn't great for a photographer. But no, I do try and tell a story, the story of a moment, a building, an achievement, a construction project. So I'll backtrack on that one. I was trying to stop myself from sounding too arty then, which, if you met me, wouldn't be surprised. Number 5 is well composed. Now, if you've been listening to my small but perfectly formed podcast recently, you will have heard a number of episodes all about composition, so I won't go into that anymore here, other than the bullet points I mentioned. So, a good photo has depth and balance. Depth of the photograph. You can create depth in a photo by giving a 2D object, the photo, a sense of depth, scale, and balance. Balance is where the elements complement, that's easy for me to say, each other in a composition. Well, at least I can say composition now after 3 full podcast episodes of trying. Number 7, has no distractions. Squirrel. Sorry, couldn't resist that one. Yeah, distractions, things that don't need to be in the photo. And I'm not just talking here about removing everything in Photoshop, but when you take the photo, just include the things that you need to include to tell that story. I nearly said something then that would have challenged my clean rating, so nearly apologies there. Number 8, has good light. Photography is drawing with light, so good light helps make a good photo. I said this before, on my architectural photography work and my construction photography work, I don't have a choice of light. I just work with the best light I can do, but you still get light moving in different directions at different times of the day. There's still things you can do, you just need to think about it. Number 9 is technically correct. We expect photos to be technically correct. We expect them to have correct exposure, accurate colours, in focus, correct depth of field, as in a lot or not a lot, depending on how you want to compose a picture. I'm going to have to go on a course on editing audio because my lack of the ability to speak English is quite alarming, especially considering I'm English. It's subtly processed. Now I want to say something about this. A lot of the others have been bullet points, but this isn't something I've touched on really in my podcast so far, and it's something that I am going to get onto. There is a logic to how I construct this, it's not just thrown together, even though it might seem like it. So, subtle processing. If someone looks at a photo that you created and thinks, wow, what a great job they did in Photoshop, then in my humble opinion, you have failed. People should look at your photo and think, yeah, that's nice. Processing isn't something that should stand out. The photo should stand out. The processing should bring out the best of a photo. Enhance the good bits, hide the not so good bits, make the subject matter the centre of the photo, make it the thing that you look at. Processing, like I say, I've got a real bee in my bonnet about this. I'm not very good with Photoshop because I don't understand it. What do I do in Photoshop? I remove things. That's all I do. I don't do anything else. I don't understand layers. I do 99% of my processing in Lightroom, and probably 90% of the processing in Lightroom is done in the basic panel. Probably 75 actually. I'll come on to this in another episode. I don't want to say too much now. But Lightroom, I just enhance what's there. Yeah, it's just I want my photographs to look natural and also consistent from one set to another. Yeah, subtly processed. Last one is looks natural. Like I say, you don't want somebody looking at that going, wow, Photoshop-tastic. You just want people to look at a photo which is presented the best you can using the processing tools available. You can do pretty much anything you want to a photo these days. And I find that the more I learn Lightroom, which I've been using since version 1.0, the more I know, the less I do, which saves me time. Okay then, that is episode 18, as my cold comes back with a vengeance and hopefully hasn't affected your listening pleasure. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please leave a nice review and rating wherever you get your podcast from, and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Tell somebody about my podcast, I'd be grateful. Check out my website, rickmcevoyphotography.com. Find out more about me. If you want me to explain something, let me know. Head over to my website, check out my list of episodes, get in touch, tell me, and I will give you a name check when I do it. This episode has been brought to you by the power of having a cold. I've been Rick McEvoy. Thanks again for listening and giving me 10 minutes of your valuable time, and I will see you on the next episode. Cheers from me.